It's time to prune and propagate my fiddle leaf fig again. It's been about 2 years since I pruned and propagated this tree last, and once again it's pushing up against the ceiling and really needs to be pruned down. Last time I propagated, I didn't have a great success rate. I only had 1 out of my 3 cuttings survive and turn into a new plant. This time I'm going to do a few things differently. I think the most important thing is that I'm doing this propagation in the spring when there is active growth on the end of most of the branches. So it's actively growing and it'll more quickly put out new roots and very likely new leaves as well. I sterilized my clippers with alcohol, and I'm also starting with sterilized containers and clean water. Last time, I don't think I changed my water one time. I just kept topping it off, and I think I had got some rot in the bottom of some of my cuttings. So like last time, I'm going to prune each of these in between 2 leaf nodes, and I'm going to use an angled cut. Some people say that an angled cut gives more surface area to absorb water. That seems like it would make sense for succulents. I'm not completely convinced it's true for trees, but I'm going to do it anyway, and I like how it looks after it heals over with an angled cut instead of a flat, blunt cut. And exactly where along the branch I cut is just a factor of how much branch I want to leave on the original plant, and also making sure I have enough of a stem to put in water after pulling off a few leaves and leaving a few leaves on the end of each cutting. And don't worry if you see a bit of white liquid coming out of the cuttings. That's just sap, and it should heal over reasonably quickly. I'm also going to rotate this plant so that it continues to grow straight and even relative to the window light. For each of these 4 cuttings, I'm going to pull off the bottom several leaves and only end up leaving 2 or 3 leaves on the end of each one. A stem cutting like this can't really support a full set of leaves as it's growing new roots. In addition to pulling off all the leaves, I'm going to scrape off all this extra old leaf casing material that's on the stem that's going to go in water. And this extra organic material won't be there to rot and hopefully decrease the likelihood of having issues with stem rotting. Each of the cuttings is going to get a quick dip in water and then a dip into rooting hormone as well. This may not be a requirement, but I like to think it helps grow roots a bit faster. And these individual leaves that I pulled off, they won't make new plants by themselves, but I will stick them in water and they'll make nice little individual decorations by themselves and look good for about a month, maybe even 2 months. So I'll put these cuttings in a place where they'll get no direct sunshine, but they'll get a lot of indirect sunlight. And then I'll wait for the roots to grow, as well as changing the water every day, or maybe more like once a week. This is a northwest facing window, so these cuttings will get no direct sunshine, but a lot of indirect sunlight. And that's what you want. You don't want a lot of direct sunlight because you'll dry them out too quickly before they have roots. Even after just about a week, you can see the very beginnings of what looks like roots here, all these white dots just below the nose. I think those will turn into roots. A few months in, and these cuttings have some really nice roots, and all 4 of them are still looking healthy. I think I'll leave them in the water for at least a few more weeks before I put them in soil so they can develop even more roots. After several months, these cuttings have grown some really nice roots, and it's time to put them in soil. I didn't change the water quite as often as I was hoping to, once a week, but I did change it several times, especially really early on in the process of growing roots. So maybe that's what helped avoid rot and have all 4 of the cuttings be in good shape. It is time to put these fiddle leaf fig cuttings in soil. They've been in water for a long time. They've grown some really nice roots, and I'm happy with how they're looking. There's been very little rot, and all 4 of them have survived. So what I did is I mixed up a reasonably well-draining soil with typical potting soil, perlite, sand, a little bit of gravel, and pine bark mulch as well, so fairly well draining. And I'm going to be careful with these roots because they're a little bit small and delicate. but I'm going to plant all 4 of these in terracotta so that we have good drainage and the soil dries out fairly fast. And I'm going to plant them just deep enough that the plant is well supported and a bit of this stem is under the soil. Now that I have all of these in pots, I watered them really thoroughly, and I'm going to put them in a spot where they're not going to get a lot of direct sunlight and no significant change in temperature from what they've been experiencing recently. I want them to give them time to adjust to the soil they're in before I put them in their final home with closer to window with more sunlight and potentially a different temperature as well. After many months, all 4 of these fiddle leaf fig cuttings are doing really well. A few of them that I put in south-facing windows got too much light and just a little bit of burning on the leaf, but after removing them a little ways from the direct sunlight, they're all still doing fine, and several of them are putting out new leaves. The new leaves are fairly small, but that's normal for a new cutting, and later leaves will likely be larger.